Qinwen. And I say Qinwen because it's a nickname. Queen. She's a queen. Qinwen. She won the Olympics. I'm going to call Alcaraz Chuckster in the next episode. I'll save you the, so get out of my comments. What a breakout year though, for becoming just an absolute superstar in China, delivering gold medal, playing well week to week, putting herself in that top 5. The athleticism, the power, stepping up when it matters, beating Swiatek on clay. I mean, it's just a lot of things went right for her. She handled it all beautifully. An interesting personality, basically saying, I don't need friends on tour. Like, I like the differences in personalities. I think it's what makes tennis fun. You're allowed to fight with people. I've fought with a lot of people who I'm close with. Like, that's what happens in tennis. Like, frankly, like if we had a camera on your worst day of work, it would look bad too. Simply. But one of the things that she's going to need to solve for, and the matchup that exposes it the most is Sabalenka, right? She needs a little bit of time on that forehand side. When someone can beat her to the punch, she needs to be able to accept power a little bit easier and neutralize that power. That's going to be the thing that gets her from 5 to looking at the number 1 ranking. If she can ever get there, she's going to have to accept that her shot tolerance, I think, has to improve. But listen, she's proven in 2024 that she's not scared to improve her game. What a year for her.
Yeah, I remember at the U.S. Open, someone said, boy, what's going to happen when she goes back to China? How's she going to be received coming, after the gold medal? And someone said, no, you don't understand. She's already been back. The Chinese delegation wanted her for some ceremony. So at some point between like Cincinnati and the U.S. Open, she had to fly back to China. And you're a little concerned. You say, well, you come from the most populous country in the world and you're this new star and you've won this gold medal. Even after this huge triumph, this absolutely sort of transformative Olympic gold medal and everything that comes with it, especially coming from a country like China, she still won almost 24 matches. So, I mean, there is a great deal to be optimistic about. We also forget this is someone who reached the final of Australia to kick off the year. So really a breakthrough season for a star. She's 22 years old. You mentioned that the personality and sort of the Maria Sharapova attitude is I'm here to win tennis matches and not make friends. But I don't really see that, honestly. I mean, she was at her hotel in Paris for Roland Garros, and she was sort of very, very social and outgoing and giving a tutorial on how to pronounce her name. I think there's a lot to like here. I think this is a real future star for the WTA. And I think her match record the Olympics was a great triumph that will define her career at some level. But what she did post Paris, winning all those matches, including back in China with the pressure, that says almost as much to me as her winning that gold medal initially. So buy this stock, 22 years old.
And she's now in that position where it's kind of major or bust, because she has proven how good she is consistently. We will be looking at her if 5 years pass and she hasn't won one. We're going, man, we thought she was going to deliver one. And she's proven that she can on the biggest moments, obviously with the Olympics. Let me tell you this, raise your hand if on your bingo card, you had someone who had never finished a year top 25, making consecutive major finals and finishing 4 in the world at 28, 29 years old later on in her career. What a year for Jasmine Paolini. Just an absolute shot of life into the tennis world this year. JW and I agree on a lot of things. I full-heartedly disagree with him disagreeing with Coach of the Year, because I value Coach of the Year, and props to Renzo Furlan for moving. I call it the Magnus Norman effect, right? Magnus Norman goes and takes Stan Wawrinka from 30 in the world up to 5. He's done it repeatedly with multiple people. I think progress and improvement, taking someone from 1 to 1 or 1 to 2, I don't think the number 1 player in the world should automatically get their coach to be named Coach of the Year. I think at certain points in their careers, my cat could have coached Roger Federer to the number 1 ranking. So I don't necessarily agree with that, but take nothing away from Jasmine Paolini. What a story she was in 2024. I don't care about what she does in 2025. I don't even want to go there, because talk about maximizing your skill set for a given year on the biggest of stages, in stages that frankly you hadn't performed on the singles court in your entire career. No one saw this coming. Biggest upset of the entire year as far as where they finished in the rankings, and I am here for it. Loved watching her this year.
And that's part of it too. Not only is just a pleasure to watch a mid-career player take a leap like this. I mean, she hadn't been beyond the second round of a major for her entire career. She's 28 years old. But I also just the way she did it. I mean, usually sometimes bio pages or exercises in fiction, and you never quite believe the number. She's listed at 5'4". So you figure 5'4" is probably generous for her to come with that game. And sort of the inherent disadvantages of sometimes being 8-9 inches smaller than the opponent on the other side of the net, to perform her duties, to do it with that level of joy. She was a great interview. She was great point to point. She had sort of this magical spring, and then she kept it going. Hey, she's wins Dubai and then keeps it going, gets to the Roland Garros final. And the fact that the story just kept perpetuating itself, it really was a joy to behold. This was one of the great sources of light in tennis in 2024. Bear in mind, too, she's also an extraordinary doubles player. We can
Olympics. It
table discussion about Coach of the Year for another time. This is one of the all-time great sort of emerging players of the year. Ironically enough, she did not win that award from the WTA for reasons we don't have to go into. But just this looks like an all-time, whatever the category you want, most improved player or breakthrough player. This was an all-time tennis breakthrough, and it was a joy to behold.
It was great. Now, you want to know a real sign of greatness is when things go wrong. Things go massively wrong throughout your year. Right? You lose the ability to hit a certain shot. And do we think establishing a floor of 3 in the world is pretty good when all of that shit has gone wrong? Break up with a coach, tens of double faults in certain matches. What a bar that Coco Gauff has set. I'm almost more impressed because if this is what happens during a year when she's quote unquote struggling, when she finds it, the way she's looked post US Open, props to Matt Daly taking over for BG, who by the way came in and won the US Open. So let's not let that breakup get carried away. They would have taken that in a heartbeat when they got together. Matt Daly switching the grip on the serve, looked a lot better, a lot of progress, winning World Tour finals. Coco Gauff, just an absolute force in tennis. How is she going to follow up winning the US Open? How about having a lot of people say a lot of things, a lot of chatter, and finishing at 3 in the world? What's going to happen when things start going right all the time for Coco Gauff?
People are going to look at her 2024, and the one number that's going to stick out is, and I'm calling it up here, 9,353,847. She won almost $10 million in prize money. And obviously the bulk of that came from winning in Riyadh. What's more impressive to me, 54 singles wins. This is the anti-Krejcikova year, right? I mean, she didn't even get to a major but she didn't get to a major final. 54 wins in a year that saw a change to her game, that saw a coaching change, that saw her win the previous major of 2023 and not get back on the board. If this is an adjustment year, if this is a transition year, 54 match wins says an awful lot about what the level of quality is. And, we talk a lot about Coco. We talk a lot about how much there is to like about her game and athleticism, but also how much to like about just the way she carries out her business. Keep in mind, this is someone who still cannot legally drink alcohol in the United States. I mean, she doesn't turn 21 until in March, I believe it is, until March. If every player had a sort of a B+ year, winning almost $10 million, more than 50 matches, and adjusting with such grace to some of the changes she made, never mind doing it at age 20. This certainly augurs well for what's to come.
Not to mention dealing with all the other stuff, being flag bearer at the Olympics and a million other things and the responsibilities that fall on her. And let me kind of walk you through the progression of how shit works, right? If your second serve is really struggling and is really bad, and your least favorite side to hit the tennis ball on is your forehand side, the worse you're hitting your second serve, the more often you're hitting your second serve, the more reps you're going to get on the forehand side. Therefore, the forehand looks worse than it actually is. I'm just telling you that. The more you're struggling with, the more she struggles with her serve, the more she's hitting forehands in defensive positions and getting bullied to that side because the book is out. Now imagine the book being out and people still not being able to stop it when she is struggling as much as she's going to struggle. I am weirdly almost more impressed with this year and what she's done than the best of times, because if this is how she deals with tough times, when shit starts rolling at the beginning of the year, getting that win against Iga, which is her toughest matchup, is a big, big deal. Props to Coco. All of us dummies that question stuff about that, she's going to be fine, great. I can't wait for 2025. Kind of a clean slate. She's had some time in the offseason to really work. The grip adjustment on the serve, has actually committed to making that change as opposed to kind of being guarded with what kind of changes she wanted to make last offseason, maybe protecting a little bit more than going after it, limited in what was allowed to be changed. Lot to look forward to for Coco. Really happy with the way that she finished the year. Big fan of her game, bigger fan of her as a person. Can't wait for 2025. Number 2, how's this for most wins on tour, least amount of losses, finished 2 in the world. You now have 5 Grand Slams, 61-9 on the year, best win percentage on tour. And yet we're going to talk about what she can improve on. And there are still multiple things. That's a good position to be in if you're world number 2. Obviously, recent news about testing positive for a contaminated melatonin. I don't think that makes her a bad person. Call me crazy. I don't think taking, with the intent of taking a melatonin to get some sleep for jet lag, in being proven right that everything in that batch is also contaminated. Your story checks out. Everyone agrees that your story checks out. My only concern about Iga Swiatek at scale is how she lands in Australia, how she deals with the questions. Because what's going to happen is she's going to give the same answer to the same question every day for the next 3 months. And lesser people would become impatient. I certainly would have. She is sensitive. You can see her emote more than a Jannik Sinner who keeps things pretty calm, pretty tight. I am just concerned about a coaching change, this news coming out, how she shows up in Australia. Obviously needs to perform a little bit better in slams outside of the French Open, which she isn't even leasing. She owns at this point. But if we talk about a floor for Coco, how about a floor of 61-9, however many Masters 1000 titles, French Open? Listen, chuckers like me would have taken that year every year for our career, and yet she still has a lot that she can improve on going into 2025. Pretty good place to be.
She, I still remember that match at Roland Garros when she plays Naomi Osaka, and it's this really high-level tennis match between 2 players. I think at the time they'd each won 4 majors. Naomi had match points, and Iga Swiatek basically just said, I am not leaving this court as anything other than the player with the bigger number on the scoreboard. I'm not losing this match. She showed real fight that I don't think is, this is not a particularly expressive or emotive player. She's not a trash talker, but what she did that afternoon to just basically say, I commend you, you are a worthy opponent, but I will be winning today. She does a courtside interview though. And what is the first thing she talks about? The crowd and booing and when it's not appropriate. And it struck me, there were really these two sort of different instincts. And one of them was this really ferocious competitor, especially at Roland Garros. And the other is, this is someone who's really sensitive. And this is someone who notices sort of the crowd behavior. This is someone who does not necessarily wear the cloak of celebrity very easily and naturally. And spinning that forward to what you were talking about, Andy, I do think that these allegations, I think most people within tennis see this for what it is, which is bad luck more than anything else. There's nothing really nefarious here. But I do think that it will be interesting to see how someone so sensitive responds to this. Never mind the fact that she's doing so with a new coaching dynamic. And she's doing so after Roland Garros, she did not have the success she anticipated. She did not go back to Roland Garros and win an Olympic gold medal, which is something that was clearly, if you saw the video of that, was something clearly disturbing. So, I mean, her tennis is beyond reproach. This is again, a figure that you really admire. I wonder how this dissonance, how this little blip, and everything that goes with it. What you say, the press conference questions, the sideways glances, the social media crap. I kind of worry how that is going to impact her. Not adversely, one hopes, but this is a really sensitive soul. This is sort of a delicate instrument. And I think that's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Delicate instrument that'll kick your ass. I'll tell you that much. She'll rip your head off. She is an absolute monster on the court in all the best ways. 61-9, a major title. I'd say more often than not, that's pretty good to put you in the Player of the Year category. Not in my opinion this year, not to be. She certainly has had that award on lockdown. Curious to see if there's any disagreement here. I'd be surprised if there was. Aryna Sabalenka, 2 majors this year, amongst many other things, and doing it her way. We've talked about it. We did an episode with Aryna a couple of weeks ago. Go check that out in our library if you can. Shoots her shot, is so confident now. 5-all, 30-all. She's going to be on the front foot. She is not changing, and she'll emote. You'll be like, oh, is she falling apart? I remember watching the U.S. Open finals, like, here it goes. I'm going, no. I don't care what she does in between points. She's going to show up for the next point and shoot it again. She has become one of the most consistent players, formerly known as maybe an arbiter of inconsistency. Listen, this amount of major titles later, year-end number 1, which is a very important step for a player of her caliber to put in the belt of accomplishment. What's there not to like about Aryna Sabalenka at this point in her career?
And this is such a different sort of presentation from what we're used to as a top player. This is someone whose tennis is all business. Her record speaks for itself. She won half the majors that were held. The fact that she does it with this generosity of spirit, to me, is such a shame. This is someone who lacks inhibition. She knows who she is. There's a lot of there's dancing, there's smiles, there's partying. I think that there's something really instructive here, which is, you know what, you can take your work seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. And this was just such a winning year for her in so many ways. There was a personal tragedy mixed in there that she handled that with grace, and certainly didn't seem to have any adverse impact on her tennis. Someone was asking me, they said, if you could do a story now on one tennis player for 60 minutes, just introduce him to the world. We're not talking about backhands and forehands. We're just saying, hey, this is someone worthy of being on your radar. Who would it be? And she was the first answer I came up with. We can, again, table this for another time. If she's from Des Moines, Iowa, or from Laguna Beach or Boca, I think she might track differently with an American audience than she does coming from Belarus. But this is someone where it's so fun to see a player overcome themselves at some level. I mean, we don't even talk about it. She's serving underhanded at a major.
Serving yips.
That was the level of
yes.
And look where she is now.
It's amazing. Overcoming personal tragedy, overcoming serving yips, overcoming a reputation for inconsistency, all the while never once second guessing the way that she was meant to do it, right? With a smile on her face, dancing with her team. I just find her so unique and so interesting. And I think there's a level of depth there that isn't instantly obvious as she's joking and laughing and all of those things. But Player of the Year, 2 majors, speaks volumes. Finishing number 1 in the world. Happy to see it. What a great year on the WTA tour. Producer Mike, you got anything?
No, I think that's great. I mean, I feel like we went through our own little list of who the top accolades are. I feel like you guys said that Mira Andreeva was the rising star of the year. Paula was comeback player of the year.
Yep.
Jasmine Paolini is breakout player of the year.
Or improved.
Yeah. Improved. But I think one thing we were talking about before the show started, who do you think outside of the top 20, in 2025 potentially has the best chance to win a slam?
Muchova.
Yeah.
Karolina Muchova.
Currently ranked 22.
She is an amazing player. The only thing separating her from the top 5 is health. And she can bother everyone. She would be I think she's on my top 5 list of people who could win a slam next year. Mark it.
She
can win it. She can win a major.
You want a hot take?
Yes.
Best best player never to have won a major, Karolina Muchova. And that is much more about her potential than any sort of squandered opportunity or anything like that. She is an athlete. She's played deep into majors. I mean, remember, this is someone who was injured for much of this year and still finished the year by getting to her second straight U.S. Open semi. She's been to a Roland Garros final and gave Iga her toughest match in a final that Iga's had in Paris. Muchova. Interesting that there is a player with 4 majors who is actually younger than Muchova.
Osaka.
Who I don't think we discussed her once this last hour.
58 in the world finished. The goal is to get back. We'll see what she brings next year. My only argument with Muchova being the best player to have not won a major is Pegula's resume. But I think that's up for discussion. Just as far as upside in the way they play, the differentiated brand of tennis, Muchova is going to have a career year in 2025. That's my prediction for the year. This has kind of been the year in review, WTA style. This is part 1. We're going to do the same thing with the ATP Tour. I'm thinking maybe like we did top 20 here by the book. I'm thinking top 15 and maybe John and I sprinkle in 2 or 3 kind of dealer's choice for the ATP as I'm looking at the rankings. But hope everyone is enjoying a happy holiday season. JW, you got something?
Yeah, let's just big picture this. This is the first year that we've done this. We have the good fortune of experimenting. It's been a really fun year for us and for Served. And I think that, we could have done a year-end show and gone through categories and who's the MVP and blah, blah. I think this was an interesting way to do it. I'm sure our listeners might have thoughts here. But yeah, I think instead of just having the usual categories and popping off and having hot takes, I think this was a fun way to do it. Start from, start and work our way up to number 1, project a little bit forward into the future. And I commend you on this idea, Andy. I think this is a good way to do a year-end wrap.
Yeah, hit us in the comments too. Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, we can always tell you that the moment of the year was we were all weepy over Rafa, but we did an entire episode about that, which is what we were largely trying to avoid. I do feel like we've done a disservice to the beekeeper in Indian Wells because we haven't found a way for an award to get him in there, which I regret. But listen, it's been a great year. I hope you all are enjoying a happy holiday season. This is part 1 year in review. This is the WTA version. We'll be back next week, or it'll be next week's episode.
With
the ATP. I'm thinking top 15 and then dealer's choice for the ATP is where I'm leaning right now. Thank you. What a year you've made it for Served. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.